Have you ever felt like you're at the end of your rope, desperately in need of a breakthrough? That overwhelming sense that things just aren't going your way, and no matter how much you pray, the answers seem far away? You're not alone. Psalm 130 is a powerful prayer for those who need a miracle right now. Those who are struggling with anguish, anxiety, or guilt and wonder if God is truly listening. This ancient psalm not only offers a cry for help, but also a promise. God's timing is perfect, and His transformation is already in progress. No matter how dark your situation may seem, your miracle is on the way. Let's dive into the powerful prayer of Psalm 130 and explore how it can turn your sorrow into peace, anxiety into trust, and despair into hope. Right now, Psalm 130 is often described as a cry from the depths. The writer is reaching out to God from a place of pain and anguish, acknowledging a profound need for divine mercy. It's not just a desperate call. It's a recognition that God's forgiveness and redemption are the very answers to life's hardest questions. Think about how often people feel like they've made mistakes too big to fix. This psalm says, no, that's not true. Even in our lowest, God's forgiveness is waiting, ready to restore us. When you reflect on the words of Psalm 130, you realize that God's mercy is not just a distant concept, but a real force that can transform any life. It's a mercy that doesn't ask for perfection first, but for a sincere, open heart. Imagine how many of us live under the weight of past guilt, constantly questioning our worth. Yet, this psalm offers a freeing truth, that mercy doesn't have conditions like we so often place on ourselves. It's right here, ready to embrace us. The psalm brings peace to the weary soul. For anyone feeling like their mistakes have defined them, Psalm 130 is a reminder that God's redemption is overflowing. No matter the past, no matter the wrongs, God's mercy is powerful enough to wipe it all away. It's like the feeling of walking into the light after being trapped in darkness. And as you sit with this, you might ask yourself, how can I open my heart to that mercy today? The next step is coming soon, and you won't want to miss it. When life feels like it's spinning out of control, Psalm 130 offers a powerful reminder. God hears your cries. No matter how deep the anguish, how overwhelming the anxiety, or how heavy the guilt, your prayers are never ignored. It's easy to feel lost in those moments, but the psalm invites you to trust that God is not distant. He's actively listening, waiting to answer, ready to renew your spirit. Think of the many times you've prayed but felt like your words were just bouncing off the ceiling. Psalm 130 assures you that God hears every prayer, even the unspoken ones. Sometimes, we carry burdens for so long that we forget what it feels like to be truly at peace. It's as if the weight becomes part of us. But the message here is simple. God is always at work, even when it feels like nothing is changing. You might be in the thick of it right now, but trust that He is bringing restoration. It's like having a deep conversation with a friend who always knows just what to say. When you call on God in your times of need, He doesn't just hear. You're speaking to the one who can restore your soul and bring healing to your heart. God's readiness to renew is more than just a comforting thought. It's a promise. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the daily grind, the mistakes of the past, or the weight of the unknown, Psalm 130 invites you to lean into trust. Take a moment to reflect. What if every prayer you've ever spoken, no matter how small, is heard by a loving Father who is ready to lift you up? And in that very moment, transformation is already happening, even before the answer arrives. Trust in His process. Let's explore what that means next. We've all been there, waiting for an answer, hoping for a breakthrough, yet feeling like time is stretching on endlessly. Psalm 130 reminds us that God responds at precisely the right moment. It's easy to get discouraged when we don't see immediate results, but this psalm paints a picture of divine timing that's perfectly aligned with our needs. Think about it. How many times have you seen something fall into place just when you needed it most? That's not coincidence. That's God working in His perfect timing. When life feels overwhelming, it's tempting to assume God's silence means He's not listening. But Psalm 130 flips that notion on its head. Even in the darkest times, God's response is guaranteed. It just might come in ways we don't expect. Picture a storm passing. The clouds don't just stay forever. Eventually, the sun breaks through. God's peace works the same way. It's not always about instant relief, but about a lasting transformation that only comes when the timing is right. Trusting God's timing can be challenging, especially when you're in the midst of hardship. But Psalm 130 encourages you to hold on, to know that when the time comes, God will bring not only peace, but also hope and a brand new perspective. It's like a seed planted in the soil. You can't see the growth happening under the surface, but it's still there, preparing to bloom at just the right moment. God's peace will wash over you, and in that moment, you'll realize that everything you've been through has been part of the process. Let's take a look at how that unfolds next. In Psalm 130, the prayer isn't just about asking for relief. It's about transformation. It's a cry for God to take sorrow and turn it into peace, to replace anxiety with trust, and to shift despair into hope. This is a prayer for complete renewal, a heart-opening plea for God to transform the pain that weighs us down into something life-giving. When you're deep in sorrow, it's hard to imagine the possibility of peace. But this psalm shows us that God doesn't just alleviate our sorrow. He can completely transform it into something new. Think about how often anxiety consumes our lives, making every day feel like a battle. We sometimes forget what it feels like to live without that weight. But the prayer in Psalm 130 calls for a shift in our hearts, a call to surrender the anxiety and trust that God can replace it with His calming presence. It's like holding a heavy burden and finally allowing God to take it from your hands. The moment you release, you realize the peace that had been waiting for you all along. Despair can make us feel like the world is closing in, but the beauty of this prayer is that it invites God to change that outlook completely. He doesn't just offer a temporary fix. He invites us to live in a renewed perspective, filled with hope and purpose. Imagine how different life feels when you're no longer focused on the despair of yesterday, but on the hope of tomorrow. That's the transformation Psalm 130 speaks of, a powerful shift that only God can make. The next part of this journey will help you understand just how essential it is to wait on God. Let's dive into that next. Waiting on God is perhaps one of the hardest things we're called to do. It's counterintuitive to the fast-paced world we live in, where everything is instant and immediate. But Psalm 130 encourages us to wait with hope, reminding us that just as the night eventually gives way to the morning, so too will our struggles eventually fade. It's not about passively sitting and doing nothing. It's about trusting that God's timing is far better than our own, and that He is working in ways we can't always see. Think of a time when you felt like your troubles would never end. It felt like the weight of the world was on your shoulders, and no matter how hard you tried, things seemed stuck. Now look back. What you thought would never pass has now become part of your past. That's the promise Psalm 130 holds. Just as seasons change, your challenges will, too. You might not see the transformation happening in real time, but trust that God is moving behind the scenes, preparing you for the next chapter of peace and growth. The wait may not be easy, but it's essential. It's during the waiting that our faith deepens and our trust in God strengthens. It's like waiting for a plant to grow. Though you can't see the roots growing under the surface, you know that, in time, the fruits of that growth will be revealed. So, when you find yourself in a moment of waiting, remember that it's not a time of nothingness. It's a time of preparation, and God is shaping you for something greater. We'll soon explore what that transformation looks like. There's something incredibly powerful about declaring your faith out loud. Psalm 130 calls for that very action. It's more than just keeping your trust in God to yourself. It's about sharing your belief, encouraging others, and creating a community of hope. By declaring your faith in the comments, you're not just making a statement. You're building a network of support. It's like a chain of light, each person adding their own spark to brighten the way for someone else. Imagine the impact if everyone did this, standing together in faith, offering encouragement to those who may be struggling. The beauty of sharing this message is that it doesn't just help you. It spreads hope to others who need it most. Think about a time when you felt down and someone shared a message of encouragement with you. That simple act can turn everything around, shifting your perspective in an instant. Psalm 130 is more than a prayer for individual peace. It's a call for a collective spirit, where each person contributes to the strengthening of the others. By sharing the video, you're not just passing along a message. You're helping someone else find the hope and peace they so desperately need. Declaring your faith can feel like a vulnerable act, but it's a powerful one. When you share your belief, it creates a ripple effect that resonates far beyond what you can see. By inviting others to declare their faith, you're fostering a culture of trust in God's promises. It's a reminder that we are not alone in our struggles. So, as you move through your own journey, remember that your words, whether shared in the comments or with a friend, carry weight. They can make all the difference in someone's life. Let's now look at how faith can lead to transformation, even when it feels like change is slow. Trusting in God, especially when answers feel delayed, is one of the most challenging yet rewarding aspects of faith. Psalm 130 doesn't promise that every prayer will be answered instantly, but it does assure you that transformation is already at work, even before you see the result. It's like planting a seed in the ground. You don't see the roots growing beneath the surface, but that doesn't mean nothing's happening. God is always at work in ways we cannot see, and faith is the key that unlocks the door to miracles. Even in those quiet moments, when you feel like you're not getting anywhere, trust that God is preparing something incredible for you. This is where the power of patience comes in. It's easy to assume that because we haven't seen immediate results, nothing is happening. But transformation isn't always instantaneous. It's a process, and sometimes the most profound changes are those that take time to unfold. Think about a time when you were frustrated by a lack of progress, only to look back and realize that you had changed in ways you hadn't noticed. God works in that way, gradually and purposefully. Even when you don't feel it, His work is in progress. The truth is, faith can open doors for miracles, but it's up to you to keep walking even when you can't see the end. Psalm 130 teaches us that the answer will come at just the right time. It may not always be the answer we expect, but it will always be the one we need. Just as a seed takes time to sprout, your faith will eventually yield its fruit. So, trust the process. Trust that God is already working behind the scenes. And remember, your miracle is already in motion. As we've explored Psalm 130 together, remember that no matter where you are on your journey, God's transformation is already in motion. Even when the answers aren't immediate, trust that your faith is opening doors for miracles. So what are you waiting for? Declare your faith today. Leave a comment below. Share this message with someone who needs hope, and stand in agreement with us for God's perfect timing in your life. You might not see it yet, but your breakthrough is closer than you think. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because there's so much more to learn about the power of prayer and faith. Together, we'll continue to walk in the light of God's promises.